Hello folks, my name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? My peoples, where you at? Got lots of stuff to talk about in the world today. First thing I want to bring up here is the story of Aron Bushnell and the conservative reactions to his self-immolation. So what exactly happened with this guy? Who is he and what's the story? He was an active duty Air Force airman who burned himself to death, self-immolation, in front of the Israeli embassy here in Washington, and live streamed himself doing it. Pretty gnarly stuff. The video, of course, is not hard to find. I don't recommend anybody watching it if you are easily put off by that kind of thing. It is not a pretty picture to watch. There are, I think, still censored versions of it up on YouTube and elsewhere. But why did this guy do it? Right? Why did he go and burn himself alive? Well, that's a pretty famous protest action. There's a long history of self-immolation in regards to protests through history. I think a real famous case of it was a Buddhist monk who basically lit himself on fire in front of the White House, I think it was, in protest of the Vietnam War back in the 70s. Another person did it not that long ago. The name escapes me, but less than a month ago, another person basically did the exact same thing. So yeah, it's a very extreme measure, but we are facing extreme times. There's no more effective way, I think, of expressing your protest than to do something extreme like this. Now, I don't recommend that anybody go off and do this themselves, but it's something that's been known to happen in cases of very extreme protests like this, right? Of course, what I'm really interested in here is the reaction to it from our conservative friends, which we'll get into in a minute. But first, I want to take some time and I want to basically read the final words of Aron Bushnell, because I think we all owe the man at least that much. If someone's willing to take their own life in order to bring attention to an issue, because that's what protesting is. Protesting is bringing attention to an issue, right? If someone is willing to take those steps in order to do that, I think at the very least we should listen what the person had to say. So this here, let's go ahead and turn on my window. This is a tweet basically showing the last words of Aron Bushnell. My name is Aron Bushnell. I'm an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people in Palestine have been experiencing at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal, free Palestine. After he self-immolated, that's how he died, screaming free Palestine. It's pretty gnarly, and he actually did die. The video is not a nice video. He's basically stands for a good amount of time. He lights himself on fire and remains standing for a good 30 seconds. Guards come up. They don't have any idea what's going on. They start freaking out. He starts screaming. He falls to the floor. A couple guys come up with like their coats and start kind of trying to put him out. Paramedics shows up. They get fire extinguishers, and it's some crazy stuff. And like I said, I don't recommend watching it if you can't handle that kind of thing. It's one thing if you see extreme violence in a movie when you know it's not real. That doesn't seem to be something that's ever bothered me personally, but to watch it in real life, yeah, that's some gnarly shit, man. I'm sorry to say, but we live in extreme times, and this is an extreme issue. Literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are dying in this genocide every single day, and it is a genocide. I have not even really kept track of how many people have died over there. I know it's somewhere in the area of 20 to 25,000. Maybe that's on the low side. Because here's the thing to remember about this over there in Palestine, right? It's all estimates. We really don't know how many people have actually died, and we probably will never know how many people have actually died. But we do know that roughly 90% of them, I think, are civilians, which is ridiculous. It's gone, the war there has gone beyond anything that anybody can even try to claim is a defensive action. Yes, what Hamas did there in October was very wrong. It's very bad. You're not supposed to target civilians like that. It's horrible. But that doesn't mean that Israel should then have carte blanche to just murder civilians in retaliation, which is exactly what's going on. It appears that the plan is now just to completely ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip and remove all of the Palestinians from there completely. I saw a news report where essentially Netanyahu was trying to get Egypt to take in all of the Palestinians and just basically wants to evict them from the country, which is genocide. That is one of the definitions of genocide. Genocide doesn't mean you have to kill everybody. Ethnic cleansing, that qualifies as genocide. Like moving a population out of a place so that you can steal the land and populate it yourself, that is genocide as well, right? But I would even argue to say enough people have died there to call it also a genocide. Any which way you look at it, there's children there starving to death, children dying of dysentery and stuff like that, children dying of thirst because there's no water. There's people eating animal feed. All of the hospitals have been bombed. Something like 100 reporters have been murdered as part of this. It's bad stuff. I don't think they actually have any functioning hospitals left. I know there were reports of people basically having surgery without anesthesia, hacking off limbs and stuff like that without any painkillers. There's stories of children having heart attacks because they can't sleep, because the bombs keep waking them up and they're like terrified. And so there's reports of children, 5, 6, 7 years old, dying of heart attacks because they haven't slept in like 5 days, stuff like that. So this is some very bad stuff going on over there. I can understand why this man did what he did, right? Especially if you're in the armed forces and you think that, well, any minute now things could explode and I could be sent over there. Right now we're fighting a war with the Houthis in Yemen because they're trying to stop what's going on in Gaza. They're one of basically the only people that have like stood up, like them and like Hezbollah are like the only two forces that have stood up in the entire Middle East and said, no, we're going to try to fight back. And it's like, well, do I think that we should, do I think that the other countries around there should invade Israel? No, I don't. The last thing I want personally, last thing I think should happen is that it should turn into a larger war. Of course not. I don't want more war. But no one is helping these people, right? No one's standing up to them. No one is standing up to Israel and saying what you're doing is wrong, especially the United States. The United States is trying to help them, okay? Our money is paying for the rockets and the bombs and the bullets that are killing these people. I mean, and it's only through partisan bickering in this country, ironically, over another war in the Ukraine, which has stalled funding for Israel. But something, folks, Israel doesn't need our aid in order to continue the war because they've already got enough of our money. They've already had enough of our money through decades and decades of foreign aid to them. Billions of dollars that we've given them to basically pay for their entire fucking military. They already have all the guns and the bombs and shit that they need. And I don't even think at this point, if Biden were to stand up and say, you know what, no more aid to Israel, I don't even think that would stop it. I think Israel would continue on with it. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do that. We should definitely do that. Biden should definitely get up and be like, okay, no more money until you stop this atrocity. But is that going to happen? No. It's not going to happen. You know why? Because Israel basically has us in their pocket. That's a whole nother discussion. Let's just cut that off and by saying that anyone who thinks that if Biden wasn't the president that we would be not supporting Israel is deluding themselves. This would be happening if Trump were president. This would be happening if Obama were president. This would be happening if Clinton were president or Bush were president or anybody. Any president in the last 40 years were president, we'd be doing the exact same goddamn thing because it is within, unfortunately, the perceived national interest of the United States to support Israel, which is, quite frankly, bullshit. Doesn't mean I like it. I'm just stating a fact. That doesn't mean I support it one way or the other, but that is the fact. Countries, they don't really follow rules so much as they follow their interests. And so we'll look the other way because it's within our national interest to be an ally with Israel. And that's just how relations between countries work. So we're not doing shit. Long story short, we're not going to do shit to help these people. You know, I saw a report the other day that they may airlift supplies to the Palestinians, which if we were to actually do that, that would be fantastic. It's not going to happen. I can tell you that right now, we're not doing it. If that happens, I'll be extremely surprised. Like if Joe Biden actually shows a spine and says, you know what, we're just going to like airdrop food and water and medicine to the Palestinians in defiance of the government of Israel, I will be extremely surprised that if that happens. I mean, it should happen. I would like it to happen. I just don't believe that's a thing that our government currently right now would do because it doesn't fit with maintaining American interests in the area. But I don't know. Maybe if that happens, who knows, right? The right wing, getting back to Aron Bushnell, went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but getting back to Aron Bushnell here, it's kind of hard to criticize someone who has this much strength of conviction that he's willing to light himself on fire for a cause, but that doesn't stop the right wing in this country from doing it anyway. Because remember, folks, we live in the worst of all possible timelines where anything and everything has become political. And so immediately once somebody does an extreme act of protest like this and it is in support of the Palestinian people, that must mean that the man is crazy and a terrorist. And that is exactly the kind of reaction we got from the right wing over Aron Bushnell's self-immolation. Just want to show you guys a couple of tweets here. This is some asshole named Frank Luntz. I'm pretty sure I've heard of Frank Luntz before. I've heard the name, but I'm not really sure who he is. He is, of course, commenting on a tweet by Cornel West. Frank Luntz, people are applauding suicide because the guy who did it was yelling a political slogan they like. And then, of course, we have the tweet from Cornel West. We should probably read that too. Let us never forget the extraordinary courage and commitment to brother Aron Bushnell, who died for truth and justice. I pray for his precious loved ones. Let us rededicate ourselves to a genuine solidarity with Palestinians and undergoing genocidal attacks in real time. So because the man did something and was aligned with politics that this person doesn't like, he immediately makes fun of his suicide. The thing is, Aron Bushnell didn't just kill himself because he was depressed or because his girlfriend left him or because he was mentally ill or something like that. But that is the angle which the Republicans are taking it. Because he expressed politics they don't agree with, then there must be some way in order to sully his deed, in order to smear him so that people don't get inspired by what he did. Because that's kind of the whole point of burning yourself alive for a cause. It's to make people think like, wow, why did that guy do that? Maybe I should take a closer look at why he did it. It's an extreme act of protest. What does protesting do? Protesting doesn't actually change anything. Just because you go out and you hold some signs and you chant and stuff like that, the next day, whatever you were protesting against is still there. Protesting doesn't change anything. Well, what does protesting actually do? Protesting actually, what it does is that it brings attention to your cause. Well, what better way to bring attention to your cause than to do something extreme? An act of violence, but more so an act of violence against yourself. That has a way of making people pause and think. The same way it did when that one Buddhist monk did back in the 70s when he burned himself alive over protesting the Vietnam War. That makes you stop and think. See, when you hurt somebody else, the reaction is, from most people, is instant. The reaction is, oh, well, that guy's a scumbag. He hurt those innocent people. And that has a negative effect as far as bringing people over to your cause. So the number one thing you can do to hurt your cause is to engage in violence, right? Of any kind, and even violent protest, even, I would say, property damage, which is a lesson that the left has not learned. It just makes you look bad when you're out there rioting in the streets and stuff like that. And people are not going to listen to your message if they perceive you to be some kind of violent criminal. But if the violence is directed towards yourself, that's a different story. Most people do not instantly judge you for that. Most people don't instantly turn away from that. That has a way of making people think, and it's a very effective protest. It's like, oh, these guys believed it so much, they're willing to die for what they believe. That is still very much an admirable thing in our society here. So the right wing in this country has to do something in order to stop people from admiring Aron Bushnell. And what have they come up with? They've come up with calling him names and calling him crazy and calling him a scumbag and all that other stuff. Case in point, this is Ollie London on Twitter. You guys remember Ollie London? Ollie London was the trans-racialist person who got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of surgery in order to look like the lead singer of a K-pop group, which I can't even remember what they were called. They were like, a few years back, the most popular K-pop group in the world. He wanted to look just like the lead singer of this K-pop group. Ollie London is all fucked up. And now, after a few years of basically being a laughingstock on the internet, Ollie London has reinvented himself as a conservative commentator. He's out of his fucking mind, right? And Ollie London is the last person you should ever listen to about anything. But let's read what he has to say. Yeah, let's kind of go through these one at a time. So remember who Ollie London is, right? First off, affiliated with anarchist groups including Antifa. There is no such thing as Antifa. There is no group called Antifa. You can't go and join Antifa. It's not a thing. There are small, local, decentralized groups. Collectively are called Antifa. So anytime you hear anybody say some shit like this, right, that he's a card-carrying member of Antifa, they're just making that shit up. Okay, there is no such fucking thing as an organization of Antifa, right? Pro-Hamas praised the October 7th attacks, called it retaliating. Yeah, well, you know, when you live in a giant open-air prison for your entire fucking life and you have no control over your entire life at all, and your relatives are routinely beaten and slaughtered every couple of years, when that's happening to you, let's see how you fucking feel when somebody on your side actually strikes back. Now, am I supporting what Hamas did on October 7th? No, I don't believe that violence solves problems like this. Like I said before, violence is, especially when it comes to your cause, the first thing that violence does is that it turns people away from your cause, right? But there is a point where it becomes defending yourself. And I also perfectly understand the rage and frustration that people go through. And it's like, well, you know, if you don't want these people to go out and do the kind of things they did on October 7th, how about you give them equal rights? How about that? How about you don't systematically murder them and steal their land? You know, right now in the West Bank, there's the settlers in the West Bank. We should do a video about it one of these days where you'll go outside to go shopping and you'll come back and you'll find that a settler family has just stolen your house They've just moved in while you left because you weren't there, because there's a law there that says any house that's unoccupied is ripe for the taking. So if you don't have somebody currently in your house at all the time, somebody can just come and steal it. And you know what you could do about that? Nothing. You know why? Because the cops, the Israeli cops, just sit there and let it happen. And the Israeli cops will stand by as a settler beats the shit out of you, breaks your legs, and even murders you. And if you fight back, then the police will arrest you. That's what's going on right now in the West Bank. Imagine having to deal with this shit for 50 years. When did the Nakba happen? What, in 1948? So more than that, like 80 years at this point? Something like that? Imagine having to deal with this for 3 generations. Your grandfather and your father and now you. Having to put up with the same fucking shit over and over and over. Kind of puts it in perspective. We don't hear about that on our side here, do we? We don't hear about that here in the United States, no. No, we hear the same tired bullshit. Oh, Israel has a right to defend itself. Well, what about these other people? Do they have a right to defend themselves? Going on in severely anti-Semitic, yeah, okay, nobody on the right wing ever gets to talk about anti-Semitism. Used pronouns and belonged to an anarchist queer activist group. This is Ollie London saying this, by the way. Ollie London is the gayest person who's ever lived. If you've ever listened to Ollie London talk, Ollie London is not a straight person. He's extremely gay. Remember, this is a guy that spent like $100,000 trying to make himself look Korean, for fuck's sake. Of all the people who get to talk shit about somebody being LGBTQ or using pronouns or being queer, this is not the fucking guy who gets to say shit. It's like, Ollie London, shut the fuck up. You self-hating douchebag. Brought shame and dishonor to the service members of the armed forces by burning himself in uniform. I don't think anybody who isn't part of the armed services gets to say what brings shame and dishonor to the armed services. I'm not in the army. I'm not in any of the armed services. I'm not going to try to speak for them. I think the armed services are made up of individuals who get to make up their own minds about what does and does not bring them shame. But you know what we don't get to do? We don't get to say how they're supposed to feel. We don't get to say what brings shame and dishonor. Because sacrificing yourself for a cause, like Aron Bushnell did, I think is a very honorable act. Isn't that something that the armed services constantly is calling on people to do? Isn't that the whole point of joining the armed services, so that you go off to fight? Isn't that the whole point of fighting for your country? You're sacrificing your life for other people, for the good of your country. So Aron Bushnell chose to do that for a group of people halfway across the world. Does that make his sacrifice any less honorable? I don't think so. I don't think it does. I think it makes it even more honorable. It makes it even more honorable because he had absolutely nothing to gain from it. Bushnell previously mocked fallen service members and posted on a forum and on Reddit. Yeah, okay. How do we even know that? Could have caused serious injury to staff and police outside the Israeli embassy. They had fire extinguishers there. They were fine. I severely doubt that him doing this was going to burn down the fucking embassy. That's stupid. His act has radicalized other Palestinian activists, which could lead to more people following in his footsteps. What? The Palestinians burning themselves alive? Is that what you're afraid of? I'm pretty sure the Israelis would be happy about that, wouldn't they? Besides, nobody who's on the right wing has ever given a fuck if other people who aren't them live or die. His act was praised by multiple terrorist organizations, including Hamas and the Palestinian Liberation Front. And that is actually true. Right now, there's photos and stuff of people over there walking around with his picture, calling him a hero. And you know something? They're right, because the guy actually is a hero. He is a hero, in my opinion. That's a selfless act, what Aron Bushnell did. A selfless act. Because, you know, even if he survived, what would have happened? He would have been disfigured for life at best. If he survived and was alive and able to walk, Lots of shit could have happened. He could have survived and just like been blinded and paralyzed for his whole fucking life. That could have fucking happened, right? He could have survived and been unable to move for the rest of his life. He could have survived for another week or something and been in severe pain, like unbelievable pain for the last moments of his life. Lots of very bad shit. There's no way that he would have gotten out of that unscathed. It was a sacrifice. It was a sacrifice for a cause he knew that is basically like a lost cause. Because there's nothing really any of us who aren't named Joe Biden can really do about this massacre that's going on over there. There's literally one person in the country who could do something about it. And he's not doing anything about it because he's a Zionist. And he is a Zionist. I'm not saying that as an insult. Joe Biden himself, even in one of his speeches, said, I'm a Zionist. He's politically aligned with Israel. And you know something? The United States government is politically aligned with Israel. That's why our president is. Because our national interests lie with Israel. And that's just a shitty thing. It's shitty. And the thing is, I understand why they lie with Israel and against Iran, by proxy, Russia, and other things. There's geopolitical things to think about, and treaties and alliances and all that other stuff, you know, cooperations going on behind the scenes, XYZ. So I understand why he can't just pull the plug on it. That doesn't mean I have to like it. And that doesn't mean that Joe Biden has to actually go by all of that either. Yeah, it may be a sacrifice. Yeah, it might fuck some things up in the short term, but he could do something about this if he wanted to, and he's not. So the fact that Bushnell here knew that him doing this wasn't going to change anything, I think that's a massive sacrifice. I think that's extremely fucking honorable. And people in the Middle East can see that too. People remember shit like that. Because that's the other thing, getting off on an aside here, that is the other sort of unspoken side effect of what's going on with this war here. If you think this particular war is going to stop the kind of terrorism that happened on October 7th, it's not. Dropping bombs on people has a way of creating more terrorists. And every single one of those kids who are starving to death right now in Gaza, when they get old enough, they're going to strap on suicide vests. They will. People don't forget shit like this. You know what changes hearts and minds? Sacrifice. Now maybe somebody out there living in Yemen or living in the West Bank or the Gaza Strip or something like that might think a little bit better of Americans now when they see that one of our own burned himself to death in solidarity for them. Maybe they might be like, hey, not everybody over there is so terrible, because all of the rockets and the bullets and the bombs say made in USA on them. More bullshit from Ali London. Radical trans activist. He used a female pseudonym online. Lily Arna Kitty, and affiliated with far-left LGBTQI plus anarchist groups that use violence to push gender ideology. First off, like I said, Ali London doesn't get to make fun of anybody else for being part of the LGBTQ community. LGBTQI, excuse me, I always forget the I part. Doesn't get to talk any shit about those people because he is one of them. Ali London is gay. Ali London is in denial about who he really is. He is gay as a fucking $3 bill. And I'm not saying that as an insult, but what I am saying is that he's basically leveraging this to become a conservative grifter, which in my opinion is fucking despicable. Just, you know, because now he's going to turn around and support causes which hurt other gay people, so that he can make money. So it's like even worse, because now Ali London is a giant fucking hypocrite. So yeah, fuck you, Ali London. That's the first thing. Second thing, there are no fucking LGBTQI anarchist groups that use violence to push gender out. Where are you getting that shit from? use violence to push gender ideology. Get the fuck out of my face with that bullshit. Like there's gangs of trans people and lesbians and queers and stuff running around beating the shit out of straight guys, castrating them with broken Coke bottles and stuff. Get the fuck out of here. There are no fucking groups that use violence to push gender ideology. When the last time did that fucking happen? When was the last time that a deranged biker gang full of trans girls showed up and beat the shit out of a bunch of Proud Boys or something? Like, fucking shut the fuck up. Fear-mongering bullshit is what this is. Alright, so fuck him. Anyway, and then other anarchists. What's so wrong? I guess Ali London really just hates fucking anarchists, huh? I don't know. He's out of his mind. The guy's on crack. Let's move on a little bit here. Here's some from Laura Loomer. She's responding to a guy named Sean Strickland. The guy who lit himself on fire for Palestine is every wrong with this country. You're a disgrace to our nation and our founding fathers. Open borders, shredded condition, overtaxation, and your cross to die on is not your country. America first always. Yeah, see, this person here, this is typical fucking, I don't even know who this is. Sean Strickland looks like he's some kind of MMA fighter. Pissed off because this guy did something extremely courageous, and now they have to make him look bad. This is Laura Loomer's response to that. Exactly, the man who lit himself on fire is a disgrace, which is bullshit. Another one from Laura Loomer. Okay, it's revolting. Again, I ask how many more leftist jihadist loving freaks of nature, wow, fuck you, are serving in our new woke military under Joe Biden. Are they going to open fire on other American soldiers? Are they going to pull a Nidal Hassan in the name of Free Palestine? Let's kind of break this down a little bit, because I've never seen anybody who could jam so many dog whistles and slurs and etc. into a tweet as Laura Loomer. Okay. Freaks of nature is referring to trans people. Now remember, the man was not trans. As far as we know, he wasn't trans at all. They have been doing this sort of, like the minute this shit happened, the conservatives went into overdrive to find out who this guy was, and basically are looking for any way to smear him. Was Aron Bushnell trans? I don't know, maybe, right? He didn't appear to be, right? He appeared to be presenting himself as a male, as he was in the military. And the thing is, even if he was trans, who gives a fuck? What does that have to do with his message? His message is people in Palestine are being fucked over and murdered and killed by the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds every single fucking day, and we should do something about it. That was his message. What does him being trans have to fucking do with that? Absolutely fucking nothing. Of course, I understand why they're bringing it up. They're bringing it up because that's a dog whistle to other conservatives. That's basically, being a trans person is a free pass to hate somebody for conservatives now. Nidal Hassan was a Muslim shooter, if I remember right, at a military base in Texas, who basically shot 5 or 6 people in a mass shooting some time back, if I remember right. Remember, Laura Loomer got her claim to fame by being extremely Islamophobic. She's basically like the most vile fucking person on earth, Laura Loomer. It's disgusting as hell. So, okay, that's 2 so far. You got some anti-trans stuff, got some Islamophobia in there. It is a violation of U.S. military rules to make a political statement in uniform. Soldiers have been stripped of honors for criticizing Obama and Trump and for refusing the vaccine. And meanwhile, this shit stain on humanity lit himself on fire for a place that doesn't even exist is getting a pass. I don't think Aron Bushnell gave a fuck that it's against the rules to do a political statement in uniform. I mean, the man lit himself on fire. Pretty sure the last thing that was going through his mind at that moment was the military uniform code of justice or whatever the fuck it is, right? Pretty sure he didn't give a fuck about that. I love how she also threw in a little bit of anti-vax bullshit there, and for refusing the vaccine. It is true that certain employees of the federal government were let go for not getting vaccinated. And you know something? good. You know why? Because fuck them. I don't coddle people's balls when it comes to anti-vaxxers anymore. I literally do not give a shit about anti-vaxxers. If you're an anti-vaxxer, fuck you. That's my response to you. Because of people like you, 5 million people around the world are dead. If assholes like you would just get the fucking vaccine and protect everybody, we wouldn't have had a lockdown over COVID. We could have stopped that shit. You know, remember when COVID started and, you know, they said, everybody please just stay indoors for 2 weeks. If everybody would have actually just fucking done that instead of whining and crying like little babies, we would have nipped that shit in the bud and 5 million people wouldn't have died. But no, the conservatives wouldn't fucking do it because they're assholes. Okay, yeah, you know, it's a free country. So yeah, nobody can force you to get vaccinated, but you know what? Being a free country means I get to call you a fucking douchebag for not getting vaccinated. Suck my dick, Laura Loomer. Giant piece of shit. And that's like, fuck them. I just do not give a fuck about that anymore. If you're an anti-vaxxer, fuck you, stop watching me. Seriously. If you're an anti-vaxxer, do not watch my fucking channel. Because I don't want to have anything to do with your ass. I don't even want to get views on my videos from you. Anyway, rules are rules. He should be denied all honors and denied a military burial. Well, I'm glad that they're not going to do that. Just because this dumb bitch doesn't think so. I am disgusted that the stunt will probably be used as a recruitment video for jihadists. It undermines our national security and brings dishonor to our military and the 22 sane veterans who actually commit suicide each day because they're left without proper care. Please remember that the conservatives do not give a fuck about our men in uniform. They don't actually care about veterans. If they cared about veterans, they would properly fund the VA. They don't. Every fucking year, they cut more and more out of the VA. They don't actually give a fuck about the VA, especially conservatives and Republicans. They don't give a fuck about men in uniform at all. And the people who actually sacrifice themselves for this country, they don't. It's bullshit. They only care about it when it serves their political purposes. This guy was just a leftist asshole who watched way too much CNN. Yep, see folks, because if you have compassion for people, that obviously must mean that you're a leftist, because the right wing, as we all know, is incapable of having compassion for anybody. So yeah, I guess maybe the guy was a leftist. Maybe because he actually gave a fuck about people who live halfway across the world from him, about the plights of people who are not related to him and he will receive no benefit from whatsoever. It's called compassion. It's a thing that conservatives don't have, especially people like Laura Loomer, who are just filled with hate. I don't think Laura Loomer will ever understand actual true compassion. Especially for somebody that she would receive zero benefit from. That's what actual true compassion is. This fucking bitch doesn't have it. I can't even put into words how disgusting this man was. I'm shocked to see people defending him. It's demented. What's really fucking demented is that someone's gonna read this tweet and agree with it. That this hate-filled little troll, disgusting little troll is going, like, someone's gonna read this tweet and they're gonna be like, yeah, fuck this guy, because Laura fucking Loomer told him to. That's what's really fucking disgusting. What's really disgusting is that we have somebody like her. Laura Loomer has hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. I'm not saying she's not popular. She's extremely popular. You know what? Let's look at how many like followers she's got. How many just on Twitter? 849,000 followers. Somebody with that kind of reach can actually make a difference. That's almost 1 million people. Well, you think there's only 400 million people in the entire country. So roughly almost 1 out of every 400 people in this country is a follower of Laura Loomer. Think about that, okay? Think about the kind of power that holds. And what is she doing? She's using it to spread hate and fear and Islamophobia. Like, how many fucking dog whistles did we see in there? We saw some anti-trans hate. We saw some Islamophobic hate in there. We saw some just straight up ordinary liberal hate saying that, oh, she's just a liberal that watches CNN. Because remember, folks, just being called a liberal is like basically all of those other dog whistles combined. She put some anti-vax hates there, and she put some anti-woke fucking like dog whistles. She combined like 20 dog whistles at once in there. That's what she's using her audience for. She's using her audience to spread hate and fear, because then that's how she makes her money. She makes her money. She personally enriches herself by making the world a shittier place. This guy, Aron Bushnell, sacrificed his life to bring awareness to the plight of people in a country halfway around the world that he never met, that he had nothing in common with. He didn't even share like a same ancestry or background. It's not like he had relatives there or some shit like that, not that we know of. I don't know, maybe he did. Not likely. I mean, he's like a white guy from like, you know, the Midwest and shit. What does that have to do with Palestine? Nothing. But he did it anyway, because he saw people suffering and wanted to do something about it. That's brave. Any which way you look at it, that's brave. Even if it's for someone that you consider as your enemy. Well, you know something? You know what that says to me? When I see that kind of sacrifice, it says to me, hey, maybe these people aren't my enemies. Maybe these are just ordinary people. Maybe we need to do something about that. Maybe we as a country are supporting the wrong side here. That's what that says to me. Laura Loomer is using her reach and her influence over 1 out of every 400 people in this country to spread hate and fear in order to personally enrich herself. Because that's what it's really all about with these fucking grifters, all right? That's what the real story is with these fucking assholes, is that they're there to fucking make money. It's fucking disgusting. I think that's it for this. I had a bunch of other stuff. Maybe I'll do a part 2 to this one, because I've got a lot more material, but it's already been an hour and there's a few other things I want to talk about. Wanted to talk about Tim Pool and a bunch of other tweets, but we're going to move on. Suffice to say, fuck Laura Loomer. And as far as I'm concerned, this guy, Bushnell, this guy might as well be a fucking hero. Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.